Hello guys and welcome back to 737 DIY Sim here in Brunei. Now today I'm going to take a step back from the 737 and hopefully continue the build with the Cessna 172. I'm a great fan of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 and I love all the aircraft in it. What I want is a small cockpit desktop unit that I can just jump in and go for a flight and perhaps do some landing challenges. Now, you're probably seeing the complete unit here. There are some more videos coming on the way. They're the construction of the MIP, the construction of the avionics panel, but I need another G1000. And in today's episode, that's what we're going to create. So we're back inside and what's about to happen is probably going to be something very similar to how the FMC went. We're going to use these tiny tactile switches. So you can see the tactile switch here and I've gone around and put an LED tester on the LEDs and found out which is the cathode and which is the anode and marked this tiny little black mark on the cathode. Now normally all the ones I've had in the past come with this mark on, these ones don't, and it's very hard to tell the length of the legs because they look identical. So I've had to do a bit of manual thought and pre-prep them. Now from the FMC build, a lot of people asked, where'd you get these from? I've discovered that you can get these from RS online, however they cost a fortune. I got mine from eBay and you get 100 for about £22. And that's highly recommend them. They are good little units. And here we've got our first button cap. You can see from the previous footage that I printed these in white PLA. These are resin printed. And I sprayed them black. They're now dry. They dried for about 2 days. I've got a small file here and all I'm going to do is gently rub the file across the top of the raised surface and it should take the top layer of paint off. I'm going to turn it 180 degrees round and do it the other way to take any burrs off. Get my brush off the excess. There we've got a button that can be backlit. Just got to put the tactile switch in, so the cathode needs to go at the bottom, push it in, and that one just clipped in all by itself. It's good to go. Same again, number 2. Yeah, so that one's not going to click in, so I need my screwdriver and I'm just going to squeeze the legs together. There we go, and it positively clicks in, and that will stop the button from falling out. With the button cap sorted, it's now time to sort out the frame. Again, that's got engraved text on it. It's been spray painted black. We need to remove the top layer. Let's do that now. And got my trusty file. And all I'm going to do is just go over the top and hopefully remove the top layer. There we go. And it really does only take a few seconds to get this done. Brush it off. And there we've got our first frame completely done. A couple of seconds work and it looks pretty good, I think. Now, people have suggested, why don't I resin print it and then laser etch the parts? If you could probably just make out in the corner there, let me spin the camera around. And hopefully you can see that I do have actually a laser on the CNC machine here that I would normally use to etch the parts. However, not everybody's got a laser. This is the simplest way I could find to do it. However, I will produce another version once the laser is working again, because getting parts out here is an absolute nightmare. Let's put this thing together. Of course, it's going to be really simple. There's only 4 parts. That's got the left-hand frame. We've got the top here. That's going to go together like that. We're going to flip it over to the left-hand frame, and I've got this tiny little M4 by 6mm screw. It's not going to go in. I think I've got too much paint in the hole. So out comes my drill. And very gently remove the excess. There we go. So hopefully these will go together now. Same for the base frame. Okay, see if this one screws together. Yep, that's nice and secure. Cool. Let's get our right hand side. And there we have our frame. Time to install some buttons, and we'll start with the push buttons at the bottom. And again, this should be quite a simple task of just feeding them through, lining up the legs with the holes and pushing in. But there we go. Yep, it's not stuck, it's got a good push, and we just need to spread the legs. So I've got my screwdriver here, and all we're going to do once more, just bend the legs over to hold it in position. And I'm just testing to make sure it doesn't stick, because you don't want to build this, assemble it all, and find that you've got a sticky button. That's just going to ruin it. Okay, that's good. Only another 11 of those to go. Yeah, that's good. Flip it over. And I'm bending the legs to the outside again, because if you bend them towards the inside, they're going to touch each other. There we go. Yep. That's all the bottom buttons done. Now I've got to do the left-hand frame, starting with the autopilot. I've got my phone next to me here, so I've got an image to see where the buttons go in the correct order. There we go. And I've got to repeat that again. As you can see, it's quite a repetitive job, just like it was on the FMC. But it should all be worth it in the end. There we go. And there we have our frame. All the buttons are in. Let's get the screen fitted next. Flip it over. And we're going to install the 10.4 LCD screen upside down. So the thick part is at the top. In it goes. Sits nice and flush. So we've got our 3D printed screen mounts. And we've got the right hand side here. That's going to go hopefully into these holes. And we've got the left side mount. And when I say it's the left side mount, it's the left side as you're looking at it now. So next up, we've got the support assembly. The Arduino and the interface boards go onto here. Yep, that slides back and forth, hopefully locates correctly. Now we've got our LCD boards, and they're going to hopefully just sit over in location and screw into place. And finally the button board, the menu board, 2 more little screws. Just going to connect the display connector up hopefully, without damaging it. There we go, that looks like it's in. Now we've got our Arduino mount. That's going to go on there. So next I'm going to mount the pots, but once you put the pots in, it's very difficult to get to the wires below the transfer switches. So I will wire the transfer switches up first. Hopefully you won't have as many wires as the FMC, but I imagine these are going to stack up quite quickly. There's nowhere near the amount of buttons as there was before though. Okay, let's just heat shrink this down. Done. Hopefully our pot and bracket now will just fit in over the top of the wires. And we've got some 2.6mm screws, and they're going to screw in from behind. And we'll put the other pot bracket in. Okay. Then we've got our 3D printed volume knobs. They're just going to slide over the top. There's one. There's two. And the little white rings should light up afterwards. Next up are all the dual encoders. I'm using propwashsim.com dual encoders, and they come with the knobs as well. And for the Garmin 1000 they look absolutely ideal. There are some additional 3D printed ones because the G1000 has a different shape, and I'll show you those shortly. But for the time being, let's get these fitted. That's going to push through the big holes, and then we've got the little nuts to secure them on the other side. There's one. Got quite a few of these. Last one at the bottom here. And that leaves standard EC11 encoders for the last two holes. Now this one should be like a little joystick. I've missed that functionality out. It'll have the encoder positive and negative, so we can zoom in and zoom out, but we won't be able to move the map without the mouse. Not for the time being anyway. I have ordered some little joystick buttons, but they are very expensive. Okay, so for the encoders, in from behind, locate the locating tang. There we go. On goes the nut. Change over from 8 to 10. Whoa. Yeah. I doubted myself then. It looked bigger than 10mm, but it's not. There we go. Give that a nip. Onto the other side. Cods or wallop. Right. I forgot about this. A socket won't fit in because the hole in the real thing is actually quite small, and I think if I was to redesign this, I would put a backing plate on, just like the pots at the top here, to make it a lot easier to fit. At the moment, I'm having to drive the nut around with a screwdriver. Not ideal, but it works and it's secure. Okay, let's fit some knobs. Now I need to get them in the right order. Well, the standard ones, I think, are the common nav. Heading is definitely the triangle one. Yep. There we go. I think these are standard as well. I think it's this one here that has the triangle on top. Yes, it does. There we go. That leaves the nav, which is definitely a standard. Good. And finally, the pan button, or the range. And is that going to stay on? It's a bit loose. Excuse me. It's a bit loose, so I'm just going to splay the shaft. And that's what our Garmin 1000 looks like so far. On the back, we've got a few wires. I think it's time to do some proper wiring and get this thing finished. Let me show you where I'm at. I've connected all the grounds of every device so far. So starting in the top left for me, we're going from the COM transfer switch into the first dual encoder, and it just keeps going along to every device all the way to the other side, and it ends in the final dual encoder here, and this is the single ground that will go to the Arduino here. I'm now going to go back and connect, hopefully you can see this in camera, all these wires here to every single device, and they're going to be the action lines that go to the pins on the Arduino. I'll get back to you in a sec. Let's start that time lapse. There we have all the components wired up. The two volumes pots, they're not wired because I don't really think I need to adjust the volume on the COM or the nav radios, not yet. And if I do, it's simple just to add a couple of extra wires onto the Arduino. I'm going to put that to one side just for a second. And we're going to use a prototyping board. I get asked this all the time. What boards do I use? I absolutely love these. These are the Keystudio ones available from Amazon. They're bright yellow and black. And let's pull one out. There they are. Now we can put all our cables, all our wires, our resistors, if we have any, into these units. And along with them, we need some header pins. Now I just need some male ones, so pull these ones out. One more for good luck. There we go. Put them to the side. Bring our Garmin back in. These are all the tails that need to be connected. And we're just going to put the pins into the Arduino. That's all the header pins in. We've got our board. Make sure the numbers face the top, and hopefully we're just going to feed those pins now into the holes. Okay. I'm just going to work my way along and solder all the pins to the board. And there we have it, guys. There's the front of the Garmin NXI G1000. Turn it round and that's it, fully wired. It used a lot more pins than I expected. I think we used about 64 out of the 69 pins on the Arduino. From the front, it only looks like a couple of buttons. It's because there's so many dual encoders. With each dual encoder having 5 wires, that's instantly 5, 10, 15, 20, that's 25 pins just alone in the encoders. So before I start programming, let me bring the Cessna panel back. Let's get this attached so it's in place, and hopefully that'll be the support for it to sit into while I program it. You can see that I've removed the old prototype one. That's because I needed the screen to fit into this one here. Now this is an exact copy of the prototype. It's just using resin instead of filament, and I've used the screen out of the old unit. Hopefully this is going to sit in and fit perfectly. And by the way guys, the C172 instrument panel, that's coming in another video very shortly once I get a few more parts created. Just making sure none of the buttons are sticking. Everything feels really good so far. I've connected the screen up. It's got its HDMI up to the laptop here. Naturally, if I show you Microsoft Flight Simulator, of course it needs to update. So we'll do that in the background. That's not going to affect us right now. You can see now that the Windows screen is showing on the G1000, and all it is the extended desktop from the laptop. Of course, the first thing we need to do is tell Mobiflight what devices we've got connected to what pins. Here's my cheat sheet that I created earlier as we were building, as we went along. So all I need to do now is add the devices and button. Okay, pin 2 is hotkey 1. No, it's not, it's hotkey 12. There we go. So HK is hotkey, and that's the 12 buttons along the bottom there. Okay, next up we've got the COM encoder, which is this one here. Add device encoder, and all I'm going to label this one is COM out. Add device encoder, that's going to be the COM inner encoder. There we go. Next up we've got the COM push. Add device button. COM push. Okay, that's all the devices set up. Make sure you upload it. I do. And that's that part done. Okay, that's pretty cool. Let's see how we're doing on the update. Nearly done. We've got the Garmin on the screen. Let's head over to Mobiflight. Mobiflight's there. We've inputted our devices. Now we'll click on a new line and let's do the nav encoder first. So nav outer encoder. We'll edit the line. We are the G1000, and we're going to scroll down and we're going to find the nav encoder. There it is, nav outer encoder. And we're going to use Microsoft Events group. Because it's a generic panel, it's going to be under Microsoft Generic Avionics, not camera. Selected the wrong one. There we go. And it's put us in as the autopilot out. We don't want that. We want all the way to the bottom. Here we are. PFD, because this is on the left hand side. And we're looking for, there it is, nav. And if we turn it to the left, it's going to decrease it. So there we are. Onto the right, we're going to select the exact same again. Group. All the way down to Microsoft Generic Auto Avionics. Ooh. And then we find the same one yet again. So it's PFD nav outer, and this time it's going to be increase. There it is. Hit OK. Ensure the line is active, and then we are actually running. We are. So if I turn the outer knob now, we're straight in. It works. On the screen here under nav, you should see the 117, and up, down, it works no problem. Just make sure the inner knob doesn't work because we haven't programmed that yet, and it doesn't. It's still stuck at 9.5. Now the easiest way to do this is just to simply duplicate the line, change it to what it's now going to be, and this is going to be the inner encoder. Remove the copy, and then we're going to edit the line. We're going to change the encoder to nav in, and on left we're going to change it to the small decrease, and on right we're going to change it to small increase. Hit OK and see if that works. Let's hide Mobiflight for a second so you guys can see it on screen, and the 9.5 should change now. No worries, nice and fast. Okay, of course the nav encoder now has a third function, and that's if you push it in, and we need to program that next. Into Mobiflight, we are going to create a brand new line this time because this is a button, and this is going to be the nav push. Edit the line. Yep, again it's the G1000 card, and we are now looking for, this is going to be nav push, which I think is right at the bottom. Oh no, that's heading. A bit closer. There we go. Nav push. Into Mobiflight events. Of course, it's going to be Microsoft generic avionics. And now we need to find the nav push, which I think is actually next to the ones we've just selected. So look for PFD, coming down to nav. There's the nav push. And I'm not going to do anything else. I'm not going to use the release right now. I'm just going to test that. Okay, so if I was to, there we go, that switches it. Let's see if it does it on here. No. Back to Mobiflight. What have I done wrong? Well, I've not enabled it. That's always a bad start. Here we go. Let's try again. Yay! And you can hopefully see that when I push the dual encoder, it switches between nav 1 and nav 2. How awesome is that? Okay, moving on. We've then got the nav transfer button, and that takes it from nav 1 active to nav 1 standby and vice versa. And what we're going to do is, because that's a button and the last one was a button, we're just going to copy or duplicate the line, and we're going to change it to nav switch. We're going to edit the line, and once again change it from nav push, and there should be one called nav switch. There it is. And now we need to find nav. Oh, it's right there. Hit OK. I'm just going to move off that line and back to it so it refreshes Mobiflight, and here we go. Going to push it, and now the nav active and standby figures, let me move this out of the way, should swap over. Hurrah! Push it, nav 1 changes over, and we can do the adjustments. Switch it over, makes it into the active. How simple is that? That's one encoder and 2 buttons working on the G1000 already. So simple. Now it's just a process of duplicating those exact steps for every single one. I am not going to show you that because that would be boring as hell. I'll just quickly run through it, and then I'll get back to you at the end when it's all programmed. Before I program the rest, I will issue this time the full wiring diagram, the full pins that I used for each device, and every event, so you can just use that as a quick reference guide to program your own way. Let's put this into time-lapse mode because this is going to take a little while, even when just duplicating the lines, and I'll get back to you when this is all done. See you in a mo. So while I was programming, I've come across a button I cannot find, and that is the VNav button on the left-hand side here. So we're going to head over to hubhop.mobiflight.com. That's really quite difficult. We're going to go to View Contributions, and in the preset panel here, all I'm going to type in is VNav and hit enter, and it's come up. I'm going to select it, and there's the code that I need. I'm just going to press copy on the bottom there. I'm going to head back over to Mobiflight, not Microsoft Flight Simulator, and the button should be inserted there. I'm going to duplicate the row, name it VNav, I'm going to edit the line, change that to VNav, so I've got to find it in the list. There we go. And we're going to change it from Microsoft Flight Simulator events to custom input. And all we're going to do is press Ctrl V and hit OK. It's done, it's that simple. And you can do that with any of the buttons. So here's the VNav indicator here, and it should turn white if we push it. There we go, you see the little bar on the screen there, and on here we can release, and it works. Let me finish up and I'll get back to you at the end again. Okay guys, I think we are done. That was a massive list. It didn't take that long though, because it's just selecting inputs. I think it's all there. I've got all the ticks, making sure they're active. The program is actually running. I guess the only thing to do now is to push the buttons and see what happens. So if we go to the hotkey 12, we should get the alerts tab up, and we do. Oh, that's a bonus. Nearest airports, yeah, we double tap that. How about the time? Oh, that hotkey. So button 2 is currently not working. So let's have a look why. That's going to be hotkey 2. It is the right input selected. Now, because we found a button that isn't working, the easiest way to fix this is to go to settings, make sure that logging is enabled and debug is selected in the menu, hit OK. We should get the lines at the bottom of the screen here, and if I push hotkey 2, OK, so it's not registering in Mobiflight, which obviously means it's more likely to be a wiring fault than it is to be a software fault. OK, now I'm going to look around the back here. It's 1, 2, OK. Definitely a wiring fault. Bit of a monumental cock up. Let me grab the other camera and I'll take you around the back and show you what I've done. So here we go. Got my pen here. We're around the back of the unit, and hotkey 2 is this one here. I'm going to get the pen tip. There we go. And if the light's good enough, you see this little leg here? That should have a ground wire on it, and I have completely missed that button out. So I'm going to have to quickly get the soldering iron out and attach a ground onto that. Bodge complete. Let's see if I push it now. Do we see it registered on the bottom of the screen? And we do. Phew! And I believe the screen actually changed as well. So if I push hotkey 11, it went back. Again, press the number 2 for inset. It's working. Bonus. Okay, let's go back. Oh, in fact, if we go there, it gives us the option to go off, and it has. Inset back on. Let's go back. PFD. DME should come up there. It does. So that button works. Bearing 1. HSI. That looks pretty cool. Transponder. Back. Next up, we've got the range, and that's just simply left and right. There we go. You can see the map zooming in and the map zooming out. Oh, I like that. And then push in to pan. Now, of course, we haven't got a joystick. That's yet to come in the next version, but they are actually quite expensive to purchase. Then we've got the direct to button. Yes, that works. Menu button, that works. Flight plan, that works. Procedures works. Clear, and enter as well. Actually, if I go to menu and then push enter, yes, that works. Menu, and then push clear. So that's all the buttons on the right hand side. We know the hotkeys works. We know all the encoders work. In fact, we haven't checked the heading encoder. And we can see the figures moving just on the screen there. Again, it helps if I move Mobiflight out of the way. So heading is here, indicated by the mouse. If I turn it, There we go, no problem. The final knob we've got to check is the altitude knob here, and that's indicated on the PFD screen in cyan up here at the top. So we've got the outer knob which should do the hundreds, there we go, and then we've got the inner knob doing the thousands. I actually think that's back to front, but that's just a simple swap. And then we've got our buttons here on the left hand side. Because we're using a G1000 versus a G1000NXI, the G1000 has a separate autopilot panel at the top, which you can see in the picture. And to get these buttons to work, we've got the autopilot, there you go, and you can see this little white line appear. Switch that off. Then we've got the flight director. You can see that highlights heading, yeah, heading, altitude. Now in my last video, there were lots of comments of asking why I didn't connect the FMC to the cockpit. Well, that's actually really simple, and why I didn't show it. It's because the cockpit is in a million pieces right now. If we go inside, I might show you that. I think what we'll do is we'll do a Microsoft Flight Simulator landing. You're going to see how bad my flying is, but you will get to see this unit in action. Bear with me and we'll change location. See you in a sec. Behind me is the 737. It's in pieces. That's coming in a later video. I am completely updating all the wiring at the front here. That's pushed back. In front of me are the 3 display screens. Now they're 65 inches, 3 of them. Beautiful screens. I'm using the right hand one here in front of me for this Cessna 172 sim. I've got the Alpha honeycomb yoke in front of me. Down here I've got the 737 motorized throttle. I'm using that for the Cessna at the moment. In front of me I've got the Cessna 172 panel, and currently loading is Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. We're heading over to Woelke Airport, which is a natural reserve on the island of Borneo here. It's surrounded by jungle and it's an absolutely fantastic place to visit. It's got high mountains with pinnacles on. They actually are called the pinnacles, and it's got some very interesting caves to visit. Beautiful natural park, and it's got a lovely hotel situated right in the middle for eco-tourism called the Marriott Woelke. Let's get started. Planes on the runway. First of all, we need to get the instrument panel onto the G1000. So let's head on inside, and I'm going to hold down the right Alt button, hover over the G1000 screen, and then left click on the mouse. That will bring it out. We're going to drag that screen over to the G1000 display. There we go. And hopefully all I'm going to do now is press Alt Enter. It maximizes it to the correct dimensions, and we're good to go. You can see that the Direct 2 is flashing on the G1000. We're currently at Woelke and we want to head over to Anduki in Syria. So, Anduki is whiskey. Yeah, move it across 1. Bravo. Why do I always go the wrong way? There's Bravo, then it's Alpha. And finally, move across 1, it's Kilo. I've gone the wrong way again, I've gone the long way around I think. There we go. I'm going to press Enter, that's good. Activate, yes please. That's that in there, so you can see that we're going to take off and we're going to head right. And we'll set the altitude, there we go, to 1,000 feet. Don't want to fly too high, I actually want to see the tops of the trees. I think we're preliminary set, we'll do the rest once we're in the air. Nice long airfield. Let's get this throttle right up. Helps if I release the parking brake as well. There we go, and we're off. I'm also going to adjust the screen because I don't need the MIP in front of me now. There we go. Now I've got no rudder pedals, so that's half the excuse for not getting it right. And we're up and away, we're doing 60 knots, 70 knots, and slowly pull back, and we're away. Perfect. Now I know it's telling me to go right, but if I go left here, we should see the Mulu Mountains, which is pretty spectacular. Let's bring it slowly round. Love seeing the tops of the trees. This is pretty much how they look in real life when we fly over the top. Looks like broccoli. And there's the pinnacles in front of us. Some great caves to visit in this national park. What's our speed? Let's get these flaps up. There we go. So I think the first thing we'll do is we'll switch on the autopilot. There we go. That should level us out at 1,000 feet hopefully. And we'll skim just the treetops. And now that we've put Anduki into the G1000 as the destination, we can zoom out of the map and we can follow our course. There we go.
Tower Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra 1 mile southwest 100 feet to land.
Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra Key Tower. Altimeter 29.
Now I don't have any rudder pedals, but we are down. And we've done it. How cool is that? That's the G1000 in action. Okay guys, that's it for this episode. G1000 complete. I've got to go away and create another one, the one with a better screen. It's slightly bigger, so I need to redesign it all. I also need to get the 737 finished and back together. That'll do for now. Sim out.